Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour. Unusually fierce and early start to Atlantic hurricane season as Beryl smashes into the eastern edge of the Caribbean at Category 5 strength. US National Hurricane Center says extremely dangerous and life-threatening situation. US President Joe Biden criticizes Supreme Court ruling that Donald Trump is partially immune for his actions, says the decision sets a dangerous precedent.
Today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do.
Israel orders Palestinians to leave southern Gaza area after Lebanon fires barrage of rockets towards Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says military is nearing the end of the stage of eliminating Hamas army in Gaza. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to reply to the discussion on the motion of thanks to the President's address in the lower house of Parliament today. All right, news in detail now. Hurricane Beryl has strengthened into a Category 5 hurricane in the eastern edge of the Caribbean. It is the strongest hurricane to pass through the region according to data that goes all the way back to 1851. The hurricane is expected to dump 3 to 6 inches of rain across Barbados and the Windward Islands on Monday night, with some areas seeing as much as 10 inches, especially in the Grenadines and Grenada. Hurricane Beryl's powerful winds have put Jamaica near its path after downing power lines and flooding streets on other Caribbean islands. Jamaica's government issued a hurricane warning for the country as Beryl is expected to pass near Jamaica on Wednesday, while tropical storm warnings were in effect for parts of the southern coast of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Mexico also began to prepare for Beryl's arrival later this week, with the federal government issuing a statement urging authorities and the population to exercise extreme caution. Beryl marks an unusually fierce and early start to this year's Atlantic hurricane season, with scientists arguing that climate change likely added to how quickly the unusually fierce early storm formed. And the US Supreme Court has granted former President Donald Trump limited immunity from prosecution for official act taken while in office. The justice's ruling on Monday by a 6-3 margin means a potential trial into his alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election is delayed even further, a major boost for his 2024 presidential campaign. Benji Haya sends us this report.
This is a landmark ruling from the Supreme Court coming at a politically fraught time in America. The court holds that a former president, in this case Donald Trump, but this rule would apply to all, has absolute immunity for core constitutional powers and a presumption of immunity for official acts, but no immunity for unofficial acts. What does this mean exactly? Well, it'll now be down to lower courts to actually decide, but justices have weighed in on the matter, saying that some of the acts that Donald Trump took as part of his alleged attempts to overturn the election outcome of 2020, those would fall under official acts. His inciting of his supporters to march down to the heart of American democracy, which then descended into that deadly riot we saw on January 6, 2021. Justice is also implying those come under official acts too, and therefore under this ruling Donald Trump would be immune from prosecution. The main outcome from what we've seen on Monday is that the real distinction, the decision between official and unofficial, without getting too much into the weeds, that now goes down to lower courts, and that decision will take some time, in effect pushing a potential trial, another criminal trial for the former president, beyond the November 5th date that Americans would go to the polls. That has been met with elation and relief, unsurprisingly, from Donald Trump, who calls this a big win for the Constitution and for democracy. There is dismay, however, from some of the Liberal justices on the bench who say that this makes a mockery of the principle that no man is above the law. They fear that it could set a precedent in the future, that a president could in effect be immune from ordering the assassination of their political rival. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's campaign claimed this changes nothing, that Donald Trump's actions in the lead up to and on January 6, 2021, none of that has changed, and they insist that Joe Biden's re-election campaign will continue to highlight that Donald Trump is willing to do anything to gain and to hold on to power for himself, and that the American people have already rejected the former president. Biden's campaign claims they will do so again, but polls are not looking in his favour. We're of course coming off the back of a very troubling debate performance from Joe Biden, and this ruling will reinforce Donald Trump's narrative that this is a witch hunt, according to him, against him and his political allies. Meanwhile, the special counsel, the main prosecutor overseeing this case for the Department of Justice, Jack Smith, he so far has declined to comment. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And US President Joe Biden has strongly criticized the Supreme Court ruling, calling it a dangerous precedent that did a disservice to the American people.
Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. With today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone.
And updates on Israel-Hamas conflict. Now, Israeli military has asked the residents of several neighborhoods in eastern Khan Yunis in southern Gaza to evacuate to east after rockets were fired towards Israel. It comes after about 20 rockets were launched in the heaviest such attack in months, with a number intercepted and others landing in open areas with no injuries reported. Elsewhere, fierce fighting continued for a fifth day in Shejaya in the north of Gaza and in the southern Rafah area. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday that Israel was nearing its goal of taking out the military capabilities of Hamas. He added that less intense operations would continue.
We are advancing to the end of the phase of eliminating the terrorist army of Hamas, and there will be a continuation to strike its remnants.
Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthis said on Monday that they conducted 4 military operations on target were 4 ships in the Red, Arabian and Mediterranean seas, as well as the Indian Ocean linked to the United States, the United Kingdom and Israel. Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthi group has been launching drone and missile strikes in shipping lanes since November, saying they are in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. The coming months will be challenging for carriers and businesses as Houthi disruptions continue into the third quarter. Maersk and other shipping companies have diverted vessels around Africa since December to avoid attacks by Iran-aligned Houthi militants in the Red Sea. This situation has increased transit times and operational cost, impacting global supply chains and leading to delays in the delivery of goods. The ongoing instability underscores the need for enhanced maritime security. Now, Russia claimed that it occupied more advantageous positions in multiple directions and controlled several settlements in the past 24 hours, while Ukraine said on the same day that it had engaged in over 100 combats with Russian forces at the front. The Russian Defense Ministry said that its army attacked Ukrainian trains transporting arms, anti-artillery radars, arsenals and other targets. DD India's Dasha Charnishova fills us in from Moscow.
Moscow says its forces have taken control over Novopokrovsk in the Donetsk People's Republic, a village located in 3 kilometers away from a Ukrainian logistical hub. The development is set to allow the Russian forces to further move the front line away from the city of Donetsk. On the Kharkiv direction, Russia now says it has control over Stepovaya Novoselovka. This improves Russia's tactical positions on this part of the front line. In the meantime, officials in Russian regions bordering Ukraine reported power cuts and water supply issues after Ukrainian drone attacks on Monday. Moscow also insists that its specialists are now studying the guidance and flight correction systems of the American ATACMS missiles after obtaining the elements. On Monday, the Kremlin voiced concerns over high concentration of Ukrainian troops on the border with Belarus. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Moscow sees it as a shared problem due to its allied relations with Minsk. He said that if necessary, this issue will be discussed at the highest level between the presidents. He also reminded that Russia remains open to any dialogue formats with Ukraine. Dasha Chernyshova reporting in Moscow for DD India.
And Iran's presidential debate becomes interesting. Candidates open up with their views on foreign policy and economic reform just days before the two men will face a runoff election on 5th July. Saeed Jalili, who is considered loyal to Iran's supreme leader, went head-to-head with his more moderate opponent Masoud Pezeshkian, who questions his country's isolation, backs women's rights, more social freedoms and cautious detente with the West. Jalili plans to resolve the country's social, political and economic ills by adhering rigidly to the hardline ideals of 1979 Islamic Revolution if he wins. Pezeshkian, with his moderate views, narrowly beat hardline Jalili for first place in Friday's first round vote.
It is wrong to think that everything depends on these three powers, and if they didn't come to negotiate, it will not work. Also, today, they are confessing themselves. The spokesman of the Foreign Ministry of America has said himself that they have endured a great failure with this imposing sanctions, but apparently we say no, it was not a failure for them, and the American side was the one who did not want their plan to work out. American or Europe, why can't our merchants get visas to go to European countries easily? Our businessmen can't go easily, our students can't go easily. What did we do that the world is like this with us? The neighbors even, for example, why doesn't Turkey give us our money? Why doesn't China give us back our dollars? It should comply with it, right? We have set the contract there already. They were supposed to be investments, they will not.
Now, Uruguayans on Sunday chose the presidential contenders who will contest October elections as opinion polls show the left-wing opposition edging ahead. Early primary election results showed Yamundo Orce, mayor of Uruguay's second largest region, had won the main left-wing opposition's primary election, topping challenger Carolina Cos, mayor of the capital Montevideo. Sunday's results showed the main force within the incumbent centre-right coalition government will be represented by Alvaro Delgado. Whoever wins in general elections scheduled for October 27th will need to bring down high homicide rates, improve the social safety net, balance trade with major partner China. If no presidential candidate receives over 50% of the votes on October 27th, a second round will be held on November 19th. And former Peruvian presidential candidate Keiko Fujimori arrived in court at the start of a trial over allegations she received illegal funds from a Brazilian construction company and local firms, which could carry a jail penalty of up to 30 years. The politician, daughter of former President Alberto Fujimori, faces charges of money laundering and leading a criminal organization that received contributions for her 2011 and 2016 electoral campaigns. There are more than 40 other defendants, which include former officials and militants of Fujimori's party. She has previously said she was innocent and rejected the charges. The prosecutor said the origin of this money had been hidden from the electoral authorities and was used for political campaigns and for the Fujimori family's own benefit. We'll slip into a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Marine Le Pen and her far-right national rally wins big in France's snap election, garners reactions from domestic rival parties. Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party faces mounting challenge ahead of the UK election. Kenyans take to the streets after tax bill clamped down. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. North Korea said on Tuesday it successfully tested a new tactical ballistic missile on Monday capable of carrying a 4.5-ton super large warhead. A day earlier, South Korea reported the launch of 2 ballistic missiles by North Korea and said the second likely failed soon after launch, blowing up in flight over land. It said the test of the new tactical ballistic missile named Hwasong 411 Da 4.5 was conducted with a simulated heavy warhead to verify flight stability and accuracy. The country's missile administration will conduct another launch of the same type of missile in July to test the explosion power of the super large warhead. All right, let's go across to Tokyo. DD India's Chris Gilbert is joining us live to talk more on this. Chris, North Korea claims test of ballistic missile capable of carrying super large warhead, and this is North Korea's second launch in less than a week. How do we see this?
Well, yeah, it is a focus that Pyongyang is working on at the moment. It made the same announcement back on April 20th, just a couple of months ago, that it had successfully launched a ballistic missile capable of carrying one of these extra large warheads. You mentioned that it, capable of carrying, according to Pyongyang, 4.5 tons, or that's about 4,500 kilograms. Now, your average modern nuclear warhead weighs between 50 to 1,000 kilograms, depending on the technology. And so, if the assertions are true, this ballistic missile is capable of carrying 4.5 times, that maximum weight. But we do know that when we talk about North Korea working to improve its ballistic technology, to improve its missiles, this is what we're effectively talking about, is that in steps and in stages that wants to be able to, control not just the distance, which, they have in the past said that their missiles can reach North America, but also, the intelligence that they can, control the trajectory, the ballistics, the flight path, and also, of course, the payload. Also, as you mentioned, South Korea says that one of the 2 missiles failed, but North Korea is saying that it is likely going to test another one sometime this month.
Okay, Chris, also, is it something to do with the show of force for leader Kim Jong-un after he hosted Vladimir Putin in Pyongyang in mid-June?
Well, North Korea says reliably that it launches these missiles to effectively progress the technology to defend itself against what it perceives as acts of aggression or hypothetical future acts of aggression by perceived enemies. No wondering who those are: the United States, South Korea, Japan, etc., etc. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is a show of force following Putin's visit exactly, but it is definitely a demonstration that Pyongyang is determined to continue its ballistic missile program in violation of UN Security Council resolutions. That much was also made clear during Vladimir Putin's visit as well, that they are working to create a new axis or a new pole to balance out the US-led axis in the world as well. And so we see explanations of these missile launches usually a day after they happen. We've had that that one today, that it was to practice carrying a super large warhead, and that is the information we have to work with. But certainly Pyongyang does not seem deterred at all to continue enhancing and testing its missiles.
All right, Chris, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your views. Shifting focus to France politics now. No surprises, but fear and disappointment in far-right strong results in French polls. A section of voters expressed fear, disappointment and a bit of shock, while others expected results based on surveys the past week showing strong support for the far-right. But whether the anti-immigrant Eurosceptic National Rally will be able to form a government will depend on next week's decisive round and how successfully other parties manage to thwart Marine Le Pen by rallying around the best-placed rival candidates in constituencies across France. A long-time pariah for many in France, the National Rally is now closer to power than it has ever been. DD India's Ross Cullen reports from Paris.
Throughout this week, there are going to be a lot of political manoeuvres in France as different parties weigh up whether to stand aside their candidates in these so-called triangular districts. Now, this is where you have 3 MPs, potential MPs, who've gone through to the second round runoff. Usually it's just 2 candidates going up against each other, but because of the huge turnout, numbers not seen since the 1980s, sometimes there are 3 candidates who've made it through to the runoff. And what we are seeing from the left wing is that they are urging the third candidate to stand aside to make sure there is just one focal point for those people who want to block the far right from power. But there's no doubt about it. Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella are the 2 figureheads of that party are in pole position. They are very likely to secure at least a relative majority of seats in the National Assembly come Sunday, come the second round decisive vote of this election, and there's still the possibility they could secure an absolute majority and they will be able to implement their economic programme, and finally we would see a far-right government back in power in France, not seen before since the 1940s. So there is a lot at stake for France in the coming 5 days until that election second round. There is a lot at stake for the president. He could well have to work with, power share, cohabit with a prime minister from another party, a prime minister potentially from the far right, something that would prove very difficult for him, something that would put intense pressure on him as he tries to serve out the remainder of his presidential term. Ross Cullen in Paris reporting for DD India.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says he hasn't given up hope of winning Thursday's general election. This despite polling suggesting his Conservatives look set to lose power to the Labour Party for the first time in 14 years. DD India's Oli Barrett reports from London.
We really are moving towards the final hours of the campaign now, and some of the attacks that the parties are making on each other and that the leaders are making on each other have really been recurring themes throughout the campaign. The Conservatives say that if Labour get into power, there will be tax rises that will make life harder for families up and down the country. The Labour Party is rejecting the Conservative characterisation of its economic plans and insists that it is time for change. We also know that Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, have been polling well. What is less clear is whether they will bring home any or more than a handful of actual MPs, actual seats at Westminster. The traditional third party in British politics, the Liberal Democrats, they hope to do much better than at the last general election. They've been having 15 MPs in recent years in Westminster. They could be set for as many as 50 or so, according to all of the latest polling this time around. So that would be considered a success for the Lib Dems if that is indeed what we see. Immigration, the economy, the National Health Service, international affairs like policy on Ukraine, all of these things have been central themes in the election campaign, but all of the polling suggests that we could be set for a Labour government for the first time in 14 years, potentially with a significant majority. Oli Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
And after South Africa's African National Congress lost its majority for the first time in 3 decades since apartheid's end, President Cyril Ramaphosa has presented a new coalition cabinet, maintaining Paul Meshetal as his deputy. DD India's Daniel Kijo reports.
In a historic move following the deadlock from the recent elections, President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced a 32-member cabinet for the government of national unity. The cabinet review was delayed after intense negotiation for the government positions with 10 partners, particularly the second largest party, DA. The president maintained a significant majority of over 60% of the positions in his party, the National African Congress. This decision comes after the ANC lost its outright majority for the first time, securing only a plurality of seats in parliament during one of South Africa's most pivotal elections in more than 3 decades. Despite the centre-right's DA's demand for 30% of the cabinet positions following a power-sharing agreement, President Ramaphosa allocated them less than 20%. He appointed his main political rival, DA leader John Steenhuisen, as the Minister of Agriculture. Having been officially inaugurated as the 7th president to be democratically elected, Ramaphosa's administration has led to the start of a new chapter for South African politics. Daniel Kijo in Dar es Salaam reporting for DD India.
And the activists have geared up for a new round of protests this week in Kenya, despite the announcement by President William Ruto that he would not sign into law the bill containing the tax hikes. At least 39 people have lost their lives in recent anti-government protests in Kenya against the new tax hike. The Kenya National Commission, in fact, on Human Rights, announced the toll, which is almost double the figure previously disclosed by the government for those killed while demonstrating. Moreover, largely peaceful anti-tax rallies led by mostly young Gen Z protesters descended into shocking scenes of deadly violence last week when lawmakers passed the contentious legislation. Later, following the announcement of the vote, crowds ransacked the Parliament complex in central Nairobi, and it was partly set ablaze as police fired live bullets at the protesters. Now, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said on Monday that he has accepted a proposal to restart direct talks with the United States less than a month before the presidential election on July 28. Maduro described the talks as urgent, noting that he agreed to initiate the dialogue on Wednesday. It remains unclear if the U.S. has consented to the talks. Maduro, who is seeking a third term, wants the U.S. government to lift crippling economic sanctions that were imposed last decade in an effort to topple him. Maduro also affirmed that all talks must take place in an environment where the sovereignty of the Venezuelan state is respected without tricks or deceptions. Now, Panama's new president, Jose Raul Molino, vowed to curb illegal immigration as it took office on Monday. His government moved quickly to sign an agreement with the United States to crack down on migration through the treacherous Darien Gap jungle passage. In his first address as president, Molino promised to seek international assistance to find solutions to what it described as a costly humanitarian and environmental crisis. Minutes later, Molino's new foreign minister signed a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. government for allowing the closing off of the passing of illegal immigrants through the Darien. The United States has agreed to cover the cost of repatriating migrants who enter Panama illegally. Last year, a record 520,000 migrants risked life to traverse the Darien Gap. It is a dense jungle on Panama's border with Colombia. A United Nations-led meeting with Afghanistan's Taliban in Qatar on increasing engagement with Afghanistan will not be a discussion about international recognition of the group. Following the meeting, UN Political Affairs Chief Rosemary DiCarlo said recognition is for member states, it is not for the United Nations. The Doha meeting, attended by envoys from some 25 countries, was the third such meeting in the Gulf nation, but the first attended by the Taliban. Taliban has not been internationally recognized since seizing power in August 2021 as US-led forces withdrew after 20 years of war. The UN-led meeting aims to engage with Taliban, who have cracked down on women's rights since returning to power. Rights groups criticize the UN for not having Afghan women at the table with the Taliban in Doha. UN officials and the country envoys attending the Taliban meeting are also due to meet separately with Afghan civil society groups. A 4-member delegation of Dawoodi Bohra community on Monday paid a courtesy call on Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in Dhaka. President of Bohra community in Bangladesh, Khuwaid Johar Ujjainwala, led the delegation. The followers of Dawoodi Bohra community are spread all over the world. The number of followers of this community in Bangladesh is about 1200 and mainly live in Chittagong and Old Dhaka. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Over 28,000 pilgrims visit Holy Amarnath Cave Shrine during the first 2 days of the pilgrimage.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
We face an early start to Atlantic hurricane season as Beryl smashes into the eastern edge of the Caribbean at Category 5 strength. U.S. National Hurricane Center says extremely dangerous and life-threatening situation. U.S. President Joe Biden criticizes Supreme Court ruling that Donald Trump is partially immune for his actions, says the decision sets a dangerous precedent. Israel orders Palestinians to leave southern Gaza area after Lebanon fires barrage of rockets towards Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says military is nearing the end of the stage of eliminating Hamas army in Gaza. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to reply to the discussion on the motion of thanks to the President's address in the lower house of Parliament today. In the Indian Parliament, debate on the motion of thanks for the presidential address will continue in both the houses. While the Prime Minister will reply on the motion of thanks in the lower house on Tuesday, he will reply in the Rajya Sabha on Wednesday. As the discussion on the motion of thanks will also be taken forward in the Rajya Sabha, 16 hours were kept for discussion on the President's address in the Lok Sabha and 21 hours in the Rajya Sabha. The discussion in the lower house was initiated by BJP leader Anurag Thakur on Monday. After that, BJP MP Bansuri Swaraj took the discussion forward. And leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, also took part in the discussion. This was the first speech of Rahul Gandhi in Lok Sabha as a leader of opposition. A National Democratic Alliance NDA's parliamentary party meeting has got over. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the meet. And this is the first speech to the MPs of the ruling bloc during the first session of Parliament since he assumed office for a third straight term. All right, we'll go across to DD India's Dibyendu Mandal. He is joining us live from Delhi. Dibyendu, first of all, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to speak in the lower house of the Parliament, reply to the motion of thanks on President's address. And also we all know what happened yesterday in the Parliament, Rahul Gandhi attacking BJP. What do we expect?
Well, Abhishek, what we are expecting from the lower house of Parliament, where the Prime Minister is expected to reply at about 5 p.m. this evening, is a lot of fireworks where the Prime Minister will be giving point-by-point rebuttal to what Rahul Gandhi has spoken on the floor of the House. Yesterday, we also witnessed when Rahul Gandhi was making his speech as the leader of opposition for the first time in the Parliament, the BJP ministers claimed that Rahul Gandhi's speech was devoid of facts. We have seen Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, as well as Union Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan stood up 3 times, as well as Prime Minister Narendra Modi stood up and interjected him and corrected him on several issues on which Rahul Gandhi, the BJP claims, have made unsubstantiated claims on issues such as farmers' MSP, on the Agniveer scheme, as well as on other issues of the economic growth and unemployment. So, of course, you will expect, detailed reply by the Prime Minister this evening to Rahul Gandhi's speech as part of the motion of thanks, where the Prime Minister will also be laying out the vision of the government and the achievements of the Modi 1.0 and 2.0 government over the last 10 years. It will also perhaps give a roadmap of how Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with his government, plans to take India ahead with the concept of Viksit Bharat Sankalp, where India is expected to be one of the most developed nations by the next couple of years. So of course, that proper layout and rebuttal is expected in the Prime Minister's speech this evening. It is expected to be over an hour and a half speech by the Prime Minister in the lower house. He will reply. Similarly, in the upper house of Parliament, which is the Rajya Sabha, tomorrow, where he will be replying to the leader of opposition, Mallikarjun Kharge, in the upper house of Parliament. So, of course, lot of fireworks is expected from within the Lok Sabha today. All eyes will, of course, be there, but also the crucial part, Abhishek, is on the NDA leaders, party leaders meet. That just concluded ahead of the Parliament session, which will convene at about 11 a.m. It is crucial because this meeting of all the NDA floor leaders as well as the members of Parliament, given the fact that the government's reply to all the allegations made by all opposition leaders, the government has formed a proper strategy to counter that, and which will be witnessed on the floor of the House once the Parliament begins.
Devendu, since you're talking about NDA parliamentary meet that just got concluded, PM Modi's first address to MPs since assuming office for the third term, Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju also briefed media. Focus was primarily on the strategy in the Parliament?
Well, of course, it was primarily on the strategy in the Parliament, where both where the Prime Minister will be replying and what strategy the government would be taking to counter the allegations that are being put forward by the opposition parties, not just from the Congress but also from other political parties. We also heard Trinamool Congress's Mahua Moitra yesterday leveling allegations. Today, we are also expected to hear Akhilesh Yadav talking on the motion of thanks in the presidential address. So, a cumbersome, wholesome strategy that will be that has been spoken about and that is being devised at the NDA parliamentary party meet, where all the members of Parliament have attended it, and in fact, with all the senior union ministers who were also present in the NDA party meeting. So, of course, it was perhaps not just of how to manage the floor and how to how to counter the strategy of the opposition on the floor of the House, but also to give a message to all the newly elected parliamentarians on the procedures of the Parliament and what the government envisages to do over the next 5 years.
Okay. All right, Debendu, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. Moving on to our next story now. India's annual Amarnath Yatra is witnessing a huge rush of pilgrims. Another batch departed from Pantachok, Srinagar base camp on Tuesday. Over 23,000 pilgrims on Monday paid obeisance at the holy cave shrine of Amarnath in South Kashmir Himalayas, taking the total number of pilgrims past 51,000 mark in just 3 days. Adequate arrangements with regard to security, sanitation and medical facilities have been made to make the pilgrimage a comfortable experience for the pilgrims. This year, a great initiative has been taken by Department of Rural Sanitation by using a Lord Ganesha mascot to distribute biodegradable bags to yatris. This is to promote eco-friendly practices. Assam now. Severe flooding condition has raised in Assam as incessant and widespread rains battered the state for the last few days. The condition worsened after Brahmaputra and other rivers flowed above danger level. Over 6.4 lakh people have been affected in 1,275 villages in 19 districts. Cleaning and excavation activities of blocked drains are being carried out in different areas to minimize the waterlogging problem. The IMD has issued red alert for Assam today, an orange alert for Arunachal Pradesh, Sub-Himalayan, West Bengal, Sikkim, Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Tripura, Nagaland. Extremely heavy rainfall at isolated places of Assam and Meghalaya and other northeastern states for today and the coming days. Let's go across to Subina Roy. She is joining us live from Assam. Subina, Assam flood situation continues to remain grim. Tell us the forecast until when the current situation is likely to persist.
Right, Abhishek. The situation out here in Assam is extremely critical, and the next few days is going to be extremely critical for the state, as the Chief Minister had also stated this in the press conference. There has been heavy rainfall, and due to this heavy rainfall in Arunachal Pradesh, because the rivers flow from Arunachal Pradesh to Assam, that is why the heavy rainfalls in Arunachal Pradesh combined by heavy rainfalls in Assam has resulted in heavy flooding in the Brahmaputra, and that's why the Brahmaputra river is flowing at above danger level at eight rivers are flowing above danger level, like the Brahmaputra at Sonitpur and Tejpur, Subansiri at...
All right, there's some connectivity issue. We'll try to connect with Subina again. But yes, Assam flood situation continues to remain grim. Moving on to our next story now. An old train coach revived into a restaurant, Dadar Darbar, yet another restaurant on wheels of the Indian Railways. The Mumbai headquarters Central Railway added one more such restaurant at the Dadar station. Here's a report.
So Dadar in Mumbai has got another unique experience of dining, and we are talking about trains and its coach. Yes, we are talking about Dadar Darbar, and if you see, this is a train coach. It was a discarded train coach and it is recycled into a hotel, into a restaurant.
The Mumbai Division Central Railway has launched yet another edition of Restaurant on Wheels at Dadar. The new landmark is named Dadar Darbar and is situated at Dadar Station Garden area. The earlier discarded rail coach has been transformed into a restaurant that can accommodate up to 72 diners inside the coach.
We have an express menu so that if someone wants to catch a train, we have express menu so that they can get their food in 5 minutes. And we have a multi-cuisine menu.
It is operated by a private firm, Unique Enterprises, and offers a convenient and accessible location for diners. Dadar Darbar was launched on May 30 of this year, and since then, the restaurant has garnered significant attention. The restaurant on wheels is on the lines of reduce, reuse, and recycle.
The basic idea is to provide a unique experience of simultaneously the rail travel as well as the journey and the exclusive cuisine which we offer over here.
Diners are full of praise for the quality of food and the unparalleled experience.
आइडिया इनका बहुत अच्छा लगा और यहाँ के खाने के बारे में बोलेंगे तो फिर वो भी बहुत अच्छा है.
जो हम बोगी में बैठे ऐसा लगता नहीं कि बोगी में हम बैठे, ऐसे लगता है कि कोई राज दरबार में बैठे हैं. सर्विस भी बहुत अच्छी है और खाने में इधर मजा आ गया.
More such restaurants will be coming up in the various locations in Maharashtra. This is part of the railway's passenger-friendly initiatives at popular locations having high footfall.
All the coach that you're seeing is transformed with beautiful wallpapers, with beautiful convenient seatings and everything, and there's a lot of people who are enjoying it. And likewise, this is one place where people who have to wait for longer hours for their train journey to begin or for their train journey where it's a break, they can come and enjoy over here. With camera person Kapil Maske, this is Shama Mishra for DD India, Mumbai.
Let's take a look at other stories making news. The Delhi High Court will hear Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's plea challenging his arrest by Central Bureau of Investigation today. He has called the arrest illegal. The probe agency arrested Kejriwal in the Rouse Avenue court on June 26th while he was in judicial custody in a related Enforcement Directorate case over the scrapped excise policy. Spreading Zika virus becomes a cause of concern in India's city Pune. 2 more cases were reported on Monday, summing the total number of confirmed cases in the city to 6. Both new cases involve pregnant women. The pregnant women infected with Zika are considered to be at higher risk. To curb the situation, health officials are conducting anomaly scans for them. Over 100 Delhi police stations hold awareness sessions on new criminal laws after the 3 new criminal laws come into effect on Monday. As per the new law, The evidence collection process at the crime scene will be mandatorily videographed to prevent evidence tampering. The key provisions of the new criminal laws include reporting incidents online, filing FIR at any police station, as well as the victims getting a free copy of FIR. The 24th meeting of the SCO Council of Heads of State will be held on Thursday in Astana under the presidency of Kazakhstan. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will lead the Indian delegation. At the summit, the leaders are expected to review the organization's activities over the past 2 decades and discuss the state and prospects of multilateral cooperation. Topical issues of regional and international importance are also expected to be discussed at the meeting. India, under its first ever presidency of SCO, hosted the 23rd meeting of the SCO Council of Heads of State on 4 July 2023 in virtual format. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. France and Portugal failed to impress against lower-ranked teams as they scraped through to the last 8, set up a clash at the quarterfinals in Euro 2024 football tournament. And Singapore wins bid to host World Chess Championship match between Ding Lijian and D. Gukesh. And drone show lights up Hong Kong sky to celebrate the handover anniversary. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Business stories now. Global stocks edged higher in choppy trading on Monday, while US Treasury yields rose following France's historic elections and ahead of a string of economic data this week that could provide clues on the likelihood of Federal Reserve interest rate cut. On Wall Street, all 3 major indexes finished higher in a choppy session led by gains in technology, consumer discretionary and financial stocks. Materials, industrials and real estate equities were the biggest losers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.13%, the S&P 500 gained 0.27% and the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.83%. And Asian stocks started Tuesday with a muted performance that lacked overall direction. Banks helped lift Japan's Nikkei 0.6% amid rising domestic bond yields, and property shares buoyed Hong Kong's Hang Seng, which rose 0.3%. But mainland blue chips were flat, while the tech-heavy Taiwan benchmark declined 0.8% and South Korea's Kospi sagged 0.6%. In currencies, the dollar surged to a fresh 38-year peak against the yen. The greenback soared to 161.72 yen, its strongest level since 1986. Now, the World Bank Group has started operating a new one-stop shop loan and investment guarantee platform, which they hope will triple the provision of guarantees and risk insurance provided around the world. The target aims to lift investment in riskier areas from Africa to Ukraine, will combine key units of World Bank, International Finance Corporation and the MIGA. And prices in British shops rose at the slowest pace in almost 3 years last month. Annual shop price inflation slowed to 0.2% in June from 0.6% in May, which is the smallest increase since October 2021. Prices for non-food goods fell by 1% in annual terms after a 0.8% drop in May, while food inflation slowed for a 14th month in a row to 2.5% from 3.2%. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has sought to claim credit for the fall in headline inflation, which topped 11% in 2022 and returned in May to the Bank of England's 2% target. The BOE is assessing whether price pressures have abated sufficiently for it to cut interest rates for the first time since 2020. Investors are putting hopeful that BOE will be cutting bank rate to 5% from 5.25% on August 1st. All right, sports updates now. We'll start with cricket. Indian cricket fans might have to wait a little longer to see their T20 World Cup winning heroes back in the country as Rohit Sharma-led side remains stuck in Barbados amidst Hurricane Beryl. After a grueling month-long T20 World Cup, the Indian cricket team is in the midst of celebrating their glorious victory in Barbados as a Grade 5 hurricane approaches the island. The team recently emerged victorious in the first World Cup in either format since 2011 50-over competition. Their planned route was to New York, followed by a connecting flight to Dubai and finally back to India. However, the approach of the hurricane has led to the cancellation of all flights until further orders. Football now. Goalkeeper Diego Costa saved all three penalties as Portugal won 3-0 in a shootout against a brave Slovenia in a dramatic Euro 2024 last 16 clash on Monday. Slovenia held Portugal to a 0-0 draw after Cristiano Ronaldo's extra time miss from the spot. Costa was the man of the moment in the shootout as Slovenia choked right when it matters. Portugal will now go to the quarterfinals to face France on Friday night. Meanwhile, substitute Randall Kolo Muani scored with a deflected shot 5 minutes from time to give France a nervy but deserved 1-0 round of 16 win over a disappointing Belgium. France's poor finishing continued with William Saliba and Mbappe both blazing over before Kolo Muani struck late to win it. And the Singapore Chess Federation has won the bid to host the FIDE World Championship Match 2024. The match will feature the defending champion Ding Lijian from China and the challenger Di Gukesh from India. The Singapore Chess Federation will host the match between November 20th and December 15th, 2024. FIDE received 3 applications for hosting the World Championship match, namely India's New Delhi, Chennai being another option, and Singapore. After reviewing the bids and inspecting all potential host cities for the venues, amenities, event programs and other opportunities, the country was chosen. And Wimbledon favourite Arna Sabalenka pulled out shortly before her opening match on Monday due to a shoulder injury. The two-time Australian Open champion was seeded third at the All-England Club and was supposed to play Emina Bektas of the United States in the first round on day 1 at the grass court Grand Slam tournament. However, the Belarusian was replaced in the draw by lucky loser Erika Andreeva. Sabalenka, who suffered a lower back injury this year and struggled with illness at the French Open, sustained the injury during last month's Berlin Open. And in men's singles, third seed Carlos Alcaraz endured an early test in his Wimbledon title defence, but the Spaniard quelled the challenge of Estonian qualifier Marc Lejal 7-6, 7-5, 6-2 and moved into the second round on Monday. The 21-year-old dropped serve midway through a high-quality opening set before battling back to clinch it in a tie-break. Meanwhile, Lejal broke Alcaraz again early in the next set, but he was unable to make the advantage count, and his opponent broke back to love immediately before bouncing again in the 11th game. With the momentum having swung, Alcaraz continued to reel off the points for a 2-set lead and raised his game further with a superb backhand cross-court winner. And hundreds of drones lit up the sky over Hong Kong. A display of 350 drones created various patterns in the night sky, including the number 27, pandas and more, attracting large crowds of residents and tourists along the waterfront. Catching the eyes of stargazers, this mesmerizing show offered a unique and modern twist on traditional fireworks. Alright, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.